right, guys. Well, today we have a very special guest on our podcast, and I've been looking forward to this podcast so much. I know we kind of had some plans to do it a couple of weeks ago, and you know, it's for me, it's exciting because we'll get to talk what I'm passionate about, and that's impacting other people's lives through the type of business that we do. So today, guys, we have with us Travis Flaherty. Travis, welcome, and thank you for being with us. So Travis, I know, you know, for me, it's exciting to be here, and I have a lot of questions to ask you because I feel like we're very similar in a lot of ways in kind of our family life, in our business life. You know, we've gone through probably a roller coaster in our careers. And I think a lot of people don't really know that maybe about you because, you know, we started building a business, you and I, 6 months ago, 7 months ago or something. It's our first time working together, but we've been kind of on a parallel path within the industry, but we never got to connect or work together. So I kind of want to talk and, you know, maybe let's start off introducing yourself, a little bit about you, a little bit about your family, and we'll just kind of take the conversation wherever it goes.
Awesome. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I always love coming back to Salt Lake City. I have roots here. I used to live here for almost 10 years. And so although it's a little chilly this time of the year.
It's very cold right now.
You know, you know, a little bit about me. I've been married for coming up on 24 years now, wow. 6 kids, big family. And I now have a grandson. And that is kind of that's a weird thing. I got to tell you, I don't know if I'm ready to be called grandpa yet. Like, I think I'm going to go with Papa T, just because
that's awesome.
I just don't,
Papa T.
I don't feel like a grandpa, but I start with that because honestly, it's what I'm most proud of. You know, it's like anything else. It's like business, you know, it hasn't been easy. We've definitely had our ups and downs and struggles and trials, but at the end of the day, for me, it's truly what brings me that pure joy and peace of mind that maybe, you know, I was searching for many, many years, and I found it in my family.
Well, and I think a lot of people in our industry, and even just to be an entrepreneur in general, you know, we always talk about having your why and your purpose, but a lot of, at least for me, what I relate to in that, and the word that came to my mind is legacy, right? And people always talk about leaving a legacy. And I think a lot of times people in our industry, they skew that with money. But leaving a legacy is what you're talking about right there, is your family, their upbringing, the way you're raising them, and, you know, your grandchildren now as you start to get into that phase. But let's talk right there a little bit, because I know your son also, you know, works with you, supports you. And I know you have not just trying to pick out your son right there, because you have a lot of other great children that are doing some great things. But, you know, that I'll call it duplication in him, because I've had a conversation with him. He's told me about like his e-commerce stores and Amazon. He's doing this, and he's just a hustler, right? And let's talk about leaving a legacy and kind of helping people understand, like, it's not about the money. It's about, yes, the money is important because it helps you live a good lifestyle. It helps you have, you know, nice things. It helps you get access to, you know, certain things in life, but it's not everything. And the most important things to me is family, like you just said, and leaving that legacy.
Chandler is, so Chandler's my oldest, and
he's the one with the baby.
He's the one with the baby.
So he made you the grandpa.
He made me a grandpa. And, you know, you enter into this different stage of life where you start to see your children become parents, your children become fathers and husbands. I don't know when I'm going to get emotional on a podcast. And it's honestly one of the most prideful things to watch your children grow up right.
Yeah.
And then to see them now starting their traditions, you know what I mean? Like Chandler, I remember when he was a teenager, we bought him a shirt that said "Bah Humbug" or a coffee mug around Christmas time, because he was just always so grumpy as a teenager. And now, but if you know me, you know that Christmas is like a huge deal to me. Yeah. And we always kind of make it a big thing in our family. And now I watch him, and he's like singing Christmas and songs in October already. And now to watch him putting up his Christmas tree, and he'll come back and talk to me and say, you know, I'm so grateful for the Christmases that we had and the just that tradition that you've passed on. And so I know it's a little thing, but now I see him doing it with his little family, and it's a little thing, but sometimes the little things are the big things.
And you start creating those traditions. It just kind of gets ingrained in them as they're younger. And I'm probably, you know, maybe 10 years behind you, maybe 15, I don't know. And my oldest is 9. But I can already see that. Like, I start thinking back already 5 years when they were barely starting to walk. They were barely starting to get into preschool and kindergarten. And I'm like, where did the time go? Right. And to me, it's kind of amazing. And at the same time, you take that kind of example, and Chandler's now duplicating those great traditions that you passed on to him, and he'll pass those on to his children and his children. And in our business, that's called duplication, right? And I think I've always said this in what I do is, like, the key to building a massive organization in our industry is duplication. Duplication is the key to success. And I think what people forget is, like, okay, when you have a mentor, just like as a father, you're mentoring your son, you don't do it like, it's not this grand thing that you're doing, and it's not this secret that you're giving them. It's doing the basics every single day. It's teaching them by example, passing along those traditions and giving them, those little small nuggets. And so I really try to relate, kind of being a father is the same as being a leader, same as being, whether it's a political leader. Now you have people that you are in charge of, or people that depend on you, right? It's more of a responsibility. So let's talk a little bit about leadership in our business, and kind of, but focusing it on creating that legacy, and also helping as many people as they can through this duplication process.
Well, first of all, people don't do what they see, or people don't do what they're told. They do what they see, right? It's all about example and leading out front. And I think that from a duplication standpoint, I'm never going to ask somebody to do something that I won't. And, you and I were chatting the other day about, there's different styles of leaders that are out there, and some that, are a little more in the trenches, and some that are not. And for me, I've just always had this philosophy that, the one thing that I know that I can always control is my work ethic.
Yep.
I may not be the most talented person in the room, or I may not be the best, speaker, or whatever the case might be, but I know that I can always control that very few people will outwork me. And that's one thing from a legacy standpoint that I know that my children have picked up, because they've watched how hard that we've worked.
No matter what industry they go into or career path, they're going to have that work ethic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect them to be network marketers or whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
I teach them to go after their dreams, but they understand that and they see, and as they get older, it's very gratifying for me. My daughter, who's also on a mission in Poland, sent me a couple of letters recently. And in those letters, she talked about how much she appreciates it now.
Yeah.
She sees it and understands it and appreciates how hard that both Summer, my wife, and I have worked to provide for our children. And those are things that I see her doing now when she's out. And to me, that is something that is true legacy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's something that you can pass on for generations, because that will impact their families' lives as well.
Definitely. And, one of the things is, and you can probably attest to this in family and in business, is sometimes people don't realize, and I know there's a saying, but you don't realize what you have until you lose it, right? And so even in business, a lot of people, we're out there in the trenches, like you said, working with these people, supporting them. And sometimes they either get lazy or entitled, and because we're there assisting, right? But we're not there to build their business for them. Just like we can't live our children's lives for them. They have to go out and experience life. And so what I found in business is sometimes those hardships, when your people are struggling, it's a process of emergence, right? The butterfly goes through it. They're in a cocoon for so long, caterpillar. And if you break that cocoon open before it's ready, like an external influence comes and breaks it open, that butterfly will never fly. But as that cocoon struggles to get out, it's building up its muscles, it's building up its wing power. And so when it gets out, it's able to fly. And sometimes people think that in business, everything needs to be perfect in order for you to have to be successful. It's not being in business that has to be perfect to be successful. It's the struggles that you go through, the challenges that you have to overcome that makes you the leader. So let's talk about some of those. Maybe if you have a couple stories or anything like that, some of the challenges you've gone through.
I've never struggled. No, she's, I've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
For me, I've always had a challenge with somebody else owning my time.
Yeah.
Your time is the most valuable commodity that you have. And so from a young age, I remember my first business I started was a little, I went and bought a little bucket with a little rag inside of it and some things. And I colored a little logo on the side of it, and it was my car washing business that I started. And from there, we kind of just kept going and graduated. And so I'd always been an entrepreneur. And from about 18 to 30, we did very well. We started some businesses. We had some success. Doesn't mean that we didn't have some struggles. We built a little health club business and we sold it. And then we moved to Utah. And, we were getting involved in real estate. We were starting to build some homes. We had some other businesses that we were looking at investing in. And then the 2008 crash came along.
Yep.
Somebody started talking about subprime loans not performing well on Wall Street. And in a matter of it just seemed like it happened overnight. We lost everything. Truly, it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. And we had a car repossessed. We were hiding the other car that we had in our neighbor's garage because we didn't want them to know where the car was. I remember at one point living here in Saratoga Springs, we had our electric and gas shut off. And it was kind of a cycle. The electric would get shut off and you'd have to scramble, do everything you can to get it to turn back on.
Yep.
And usually they want a larger deposit at that point.
Yep.
Some of you are feeling me. You know what I'm talking about. And then
reconnection
reconnection fees.
Just for them to turn the little knob.
I didn't have the money in the first place. Yeah. And then the gas got shut off. And I remember distinctly, it was very cold. We couldn't get the gas turned on for a few days. We brought the kids into our room. We had 3 kids that were in diapers. And so we brought them into our bedroom and we brought all these sleeping bags in and we pretended like we were camping and they thought it was the funnest thing ever. We were just trying to keep our kids warm.
Yeah.
So I believe that sometimes you go through those challenges in life to push you down a different path to exactly where you're supposed to be, because I had been in network marketing. I had been dabbling in network marketing, but I didn't really take it seriously. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just one of those things that you did on the side. And it's one thing to get into network marketing, but it's until network marketing gets in you and that you truly make a decision that things happen. And when your back is against the wall, it can become the springboard to go and do something new. And so that point in time, we had lost everything. And I made a decision that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in. And by the way, I want everybody to hear this. I still had to go get a job. Network marketing is not built where you just make a decision and then you make a full-time income the next month.
Yep.
You're going to do a lot of things in the beginning stages that you don't get paid for. The benefit is down the road, you're going to get paid a lot for the things that you aren't necessarily doing. Yeah. So I went and took a job on a sales floor here in Salt Lake, went to an office where I made 150 calls every single day on a dialer.
Wow.
It was a sales floor, excuse me. And I hated it. I hated every single minute of it because I've been an entrepreneur. Yeah. It was swallowing my pride, but you do what you have to do as a father, as a husband to provide for your family.
Correct.
And so slowly but surely we started to make enough money to dig ourselves out of that hole. But I'll tell you something, while I was on that sales floor, I learned one of the most valuable skills that I could have ever learned in business. And it was how to stop selling and start asking questions.
Yeah.
I was meant to be there and I was meant to go through that period in time.
And I think that's kind of what I see from you, from my experience working with you in business now, is you're just, it's an art for you. You're a master at it in asking those questions, right?
Thank you.
And it last night we were sitting here having a conversation with a potential business partner and you started just having your own dialogue. And I was like, man, where do I buy one of these products, right? Because it just makes sense when you get out of the way and you just ask the right questions. What we have, people need, or the product that people are selling. There's obviously a need for it because that's why it's become a product, right? And that's why other people are buying it. And so I think you've just been, I guess I want to tell you this in front of everybody is like, I've seen that you're just a master at it. And for you, it's an art. And I think people, if you guys are watching this and you guys are, in Travis's organization or not, like look at what he does and how you ask those questions, because it is probably the best form of getting people to make a decision. Because that's what sales is, getting people to make a decision, a yes or a no, right? As soon as you can. And so I've seen that from you, and it's just been amazing to see. And obviously your results speak for itself and what you've done within our community in IX and the results you've had. So congratulations.
No, I appreciate that. We are all trained to resist, right? To be a little skeptical, to put a wall up at a subconscious level. If somebody were to knock on your door right now and you look out the door and they're holding a little pad of paper, you're thinking, oh man, what's this guy selling me, right?
Yeah.
That's the first instinct, because we get pitched from the time we wake up until the time we go to bed. You know, we're getting text messages they're advertisements now, or emails, and you get in the car, you hear radio adverts. So we just tune it out. And so the natural instinct when somebody is talking and telling is for the other person to put up that wall.
Yep.
But when you're asking questions, you're helping them to come to their own self-realization. And I remember on that floor, there was a guy named Brandon who was the lead head guy, and he would come up and he would hit me on the head with a little ruler, and he'd say, "Stop selling and ask more questions." And we got to the point where I could literally have a conversation and take somebody from beginning to an entire end where they were writing a check for the product. We sold coaching. And I would never tell them about anything. It was just asking questions and helping them come to the realization that they know that something has to change.
Correct.
Because what they're doing is not going to get them to where they want to go. And that's just, that's where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And, you know, as we start to develop and grow from whatever it is, it's sales or network marketing or as an entrepreneur, whatever your business may be, you know, the reason you were on that sales floor is not because you liked it. So you had to go and do things you didn't like to do in order to provide, you know, in this case for your family, which we already kind of said, like that is the true purpose of why we're here. That's the real legacy we're leaving behind. But we want to be able, at least I know for me, and I know it's probably going to be the same for you, is like everything that I do from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep is, how do I leave that legacy? How can I leave something that's going to be here longer than I am? And how do I create something that I can leave to not just this generation, but the next 5 to 6 to 7 generations? I think that's one of the things that I learned, you know, reading books and everything like that. The wealthy, they don't think about today. They don't think about tomorrow. They're thinking generations down the road. And if you look at all the billionaires out there, like Elon Musk, he's not looking, he wants to get to Mars. He's looking at it like, what if the world ends in 500 years? Can we create a foundation since now and be an interplanetary species? People laugh at it right now, right? But no. Could we get to that point in 500 years, in 1,000 years? He's laying that foundation now for, call it the entire planet. And then that just spurs competition, because now there's other billionaires that are now wanting to go to space, and now it creates that race. And I think in what I do, you know, and what we're doing, we're right now, you know, we've smashed some amazing goals. We're a 3-year-old company right now, going on our 3rd year. We'll have our 3rd year birthday in May. And let's talk about, and I know you said it right, you were saying it yesterday, you know, this has been your best launch, your best, I don't want to say your best everything, but as far as business goes, you know, I think what we have is really special inside of our industry. Let's talk about that to give people the understanding, like what we really do have is something special, I believe.
I call it a moment in time. You know, there's these windows of opportunity that don't come along very often. They don't stay open very long. And when they're open, magic can happen.
Yeah.
In my experience, almost 20 years now in this industry, you know, when you see these moments, you've got to grab them. It's not enough to just be there and be present, right? It's not enough to recognize the opportunity of a lifetime. You have to act during the lifetime of the opportunity. And first, I have to just say, just to kind of put a exclamation point on the legacy leadership topic, look at the impact that you've made with this business. Like, legacy leadership is the pinnacle of all leadership, because it's no longer about you. It's your ability to be able to impact other people's lives. And you know, because I've texted you many times saying thank you, how the impact that you've had, not on my life, but on this entire community. And so talk about legacy. That's pretty awesome. And, you know, going into this moment in time that we have, it is unique. It is, I mean, I watch what's happening in the industry of network marketing, and these giants are falling, right? I mean, companies that I never thought would ever go out of business are going out of business. Many of them, you know, 4 or 5 in the last month.
Yeah.
And so I look at that, or they're merging and doing the things that they have to do to survive. Times are changing, and this is a new world economy that we live in. And if we fail to adapt and we fail to innovate, we're going to continue to see people struggling and suffering. And I say this all the time, old ways will not open new doors.
Yeah.
And you look at business has gone from brick and mortar to click and order. It is a digital world that we are living in.
Yeah.
And you are pioneering that entire digital movement with IX Global. And so this community, the people that are involved, having that opportunity to be here at this moment in time with what's going on in the world, with the solutions that you're providing and the disruption that you're providing. Disruption is hard, and people don't like change.
Yep.
But disruption leads to new things that ultimately, change the world and change our lives in so many ways. And that's how I look at this company and the opportunity we have.
Well, and I kind of wanted the next topic that I kind of wanted to talk on a little bit, and it's kind of a segue, but in this industry and any industry that we do, when we start to disrupt, we start to get also a lot of ridicule, or what I like to call haters, right? And what I want to, the reason I bring up haters is because a lot of people face rejection in our industry every single day, right? Sales or network marketing or even entrepreneurship, whatever business you're trying to build, whenever you're trying to innovate or disrupt, you are going to face that rejection. You're going to have people call you crazy. You're going to have people call you names. And then in this digital world, it wasn't like this 10, 15 years ago. If somebody called you something, they had to do it to your face. Now they do it on social media, and you have 1 million people or thousands of people that are now able to see that comment online. And so the world we're living in right now, on the innovative side, yes, it's great for the impact we have and the reach we can have, but there's also people that struggle with, oh, they're going to call me this on social media. They're going to say this on this platform. And they think that social media is their world these days. And I think we have to kind of differentiate, like, look, there's the digital world. We were just talking about metaverses and this type of stuff, right? And then there is the actual things that are really important to you. And as long as nobody is disrupting the things that are important to me, like I've established my family, my life. And I used to take it to heart before. Somebody would say something negative about me on Facebook or something like that. Yeah. You get defensive. You want to rip their head off. I'm a Marine, right? I'm like, I want to rip their head off. How dare they? I'm going to track them down. I'm going to find them. I'm going to, and that's where the way my mind worked. And I was just realizing that's the reptilian brain in me, right? That's that little piece of me that just wants to go into the fight or flight. For me, it's fight, because I want to protect what I built. And for me, this IX community is my family. It's that impact. It's that legacy that I wanted to transcend time. And for me, how do you kind of separate? I want them to maybe tell your experiences. How do you separate, what's going on in the digital space, online world, when it comes to rejection and haters and people talking maybe negatively about your business or even your industry? Because there's a lot of hate on our industry as a whole.
Man, it's such a good topic. And I say that because I've struggled for a long time of just kind of, I want to be liked. Like, I don't want, and if somebody were to talk bad about me, especially on social media in the early days, man, I would get into these long battles, you know what I mean? And sometimes on other people's pages, which is like the worst thing to do. And I've kind of, I don't know, maybe older, a little wiser. Maybe I've gotten to a place truly, I would say you say all the cliches, like, oh, you can't pay your bills with other people's opinions. And, and I've taught this stuff. But there's some times where you have to take a look in the mirror and realize that you're not living what you're teaching, or, and in some ways, when it comes to this topic, I would tell people that, other people's opinions don't matter. But the truth is that we all have that innate desire to want to be liked. And so for me, I've arrived at a place where I'm very comfortable with who I am. I know who matters in my life. Yep. And let me tell you something. The best thing that I've ever done is to raise the bar on who I allow in my inner circle. I'm very protective. And if you think I'm protective, Summer, whole different level.
Well, and that's something I learned from my wife as well, from Rosemary, is I would kind of just let anybody in our inner circle. And what I've realized is, as you do that, and I maybe was oblivious to it or whatever, I'm just trying to be nice and build our legacy. I let everybody in and they destroy me from the inside out.
You and I have so much in common in that way. Summer has watched many relationships where we've kind of gone over and above or done our best to mentor or to provide for, to help. And somehow or another, in this industry, it's a funny industry because a lot of times people tend to not accept responsibility for their lack of success. It's really easy to point and say, that company doesn't work, that comp plan doesn't work, or my that leader didn't, he's a terrible leader. When the reality is we really need to be looking in the mirror, right? And so for me, how I've kind of gotten over it is I've just started to realize what's important in life. What's important in life is my family, my time with my family. I don't need, you have friends and acquaintances, and I have a lot of acquaintances around the world, and I'm grateful for them. And I, we loosely use the term friends, but when I talk about real friendship or true people that I trust implicitly, they say you can usually count them on one hand. And so for me, we're just a little bit guarded. We've raised the bar in who we allow in our inner circle. And I just know that with success comes criticism, period. You cannot, the higher you climb, the more arrows you are going to take in the back.
I like that.
It is part of the process. And if you want to own your own time and you want that freedom, you have to know that you're going to get criticized. And not, I'm also okay with the fact that not everybody has to like me anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten to a place of true authenticity where, like, if you follow me on social media, I may have a different opinion than others about certain things. And I'm somewhat opinionated about that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
They used to say, never talk about politics, never talk about religion, never, those things.
Especially in our industry, because you're like, it's a people business. So you don't want to divide or push people away. But it's I've seen it from you from the outside, and I'm like, I don't know if I would post that, Travis, but I know who you are. I know your beliefs. I know what you're passionate about, and I know what you stand for, and I respect it. And I think that's who you pull into your life as well. And that's where you start to create that inner circle that's even tighter than it was before, I think.
Well, we've gotten to a place in society, and it's sad, where we think that everybody has to have our opinion or viewpoint. Let me tell you something. You could take 5 people and put them into the exact same scenario, whatever situation that you might think up, and every one of them may have a different perspective, and that perspective is because of the lens that they're looking at it, based on their upbringing, based on their personal experiences with those circumstances and situations. Who's right?
Yeah,
none of them are. Yeah. They're all right at the same time, right? So to me, there's a way to be able to express how you feel, and I'm not afraid to express those things, but I will always be respectful of how somebody else feels. I don't have to be right. I feel like it's important for me to share who I am. And I know that by doing that, listen to this, authenticity is the gateway to building true relationships in life. Because if you're being anybody else or trying to pretend to be someone that you're not, or act like someone that you're not, which I see all the time on social media, it comes across as disingenuous, and people can sniff that out. But you're also not going to attract your tribe. And so for me, I'm just okay knowing that I don't need everybody to love me or like me. Yeah. I want to be liked, and I want to make a positive impact in the world, but I don't necessarily, and I'm okay. And at the same time, I'm also at a place where I'm willing and open to learn other perspectives as well. Maybe in the past I wasn't. So I think that authenticity is the key when it comes to, and just being okay with who you really are.
Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that I struggled with for a lot of time. Like, it's the dumbest thing ever, right? But people would always criticize the way that I would dress. I'm like, I in our industry, you get a lot of flash, you get a lot of this. I'm like a pair of shorts and a t-shirt kind of guy. And
I love it.
that. And I'm just like, why do I have to change who I am because I'm building this business? And for me, it's like, well, I struggled with it for a long time, because I'm like, I have to go and buy these expensive clothes and do this and that. I'm like, I really don't want to. It's just, I don't have a desire for it. And people like, oh, you say you're doing all this, but you don't show it. I'm like, why do I have to show it? And I think that's where people kind of get a little skewed in what success is in today's life, right? They see if your reels are cool and your stories are cool, like people see, but that's like your highlight reel of your life.
Oh,
and so people portray something else on social media than what they really are. And I'm like, why authenticity, right? Why not just be your true self? And if you're going to attract the right people into your life long term. So for me, it's been exciting to get to know you, get to know Summer, get to know the family a little bit. And it's been an amazing time, because you really start to attract the right people into your life and the right people into your business at the same time. Where do you see yourself over the next, I know this is a cliche question, right? But where do you see yourself over the next, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I know, we're building this business right now, but I'm not naive enough to say, hey, this is going to last 1,000 years.
Sure.
We never know, right? Because there's regulatory stuff. We're disrupting certain industries. We're innovating. So our business, what I have done with IX to protect it long term is allow it to evolve and allow it to pivot into other industries and other products and services as we move and grow. So I do feel comfortable about our business long term. But kind of, what do you see? Where do you see your path, whether with IX or even just as your career? Because I know you're right now, you're building other businesses as well, traditional businesses, right? So, maybe fill us in a little bit about what Travis Flaherty is doing to build that legacy.
Well, for me right now, everything is aimed at one thing, which is peace of mind. Like that's I love it. My thing that I'm always chasing. Yep. And so then you have to get really clear on what that peace of mind is, because for a while it was, maybe it's a watch or a car or this. And I like nice things like but that doesn't give me true fulfillment, right? And true fulfillment comes from contribution. Mm-hmm. That's what I've learned. You know this, when we first started talking about partnering together, me coming on board with IX Global, and I said to you, I need to come out and I just need to spend time because I need to see if I fit into the equation. Mm-hmm. And that for me was, I don't just go somewhere anymore or do anything in business anymore because I can make money. Mm-hmm. I go somewhere where I feel like I can add value. I can contribute to the ecosystem in some way. And I remember the first time that we met, and then we spent some time together, and then we went and met with Jason. And then I started to kind of see a vision of how I might be able to fit in and add value. And then I got very excited. So for me, anything that I do 3, 5, 10 years out is going to be focused around peace of mind, which is having more time freedom, laying my head on a pillow at night, not knowing that I don't have to stress about making a mortgage payment tomorrow. Yeah. Because trust me, I want everybody to hear this. Everybody sees the success Summer and I maybe have had here at IX Global in a relatively short period of time. That is a 20-year overnight success.
Yep.
That has included many failures, many heartbreaks, me sitting in my driveway in my car in tears because I didn't want to walk in and let my family see me that way. But I was so stressed that I didn't know how I was going to take care of everything that was on my plate, companies that I've launched that have failed. All of those experiences lead you to a moment in time.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, for me, for right now, for me, it's about diversification and not putting all my eggs in one basket. It's about entrepreneurship. I love, building multiple businesses and also preserving the money I've made.
Well, that's where I wanted to go. Financial literacy, right? Diversification.
I'm still working on that in some ways. I look at Joe as a mentor. I call him all the time and I'm like, hey, where should I put this money or what should I do here? But I've made money. Now it's like about learning how to keep it.
Yeah.
And I think IX is a big part of that.
And I know I shared this in Barcelona, so you probably heard it, but for everybody out there, I call it the 3 M's of money, mm-hmm. right? Anybody can make money. That's mm-hmm. the first M. You can get a job, you can do sales, whatever. It's easy to make money in society today. Mm-hmm. Side hustles, Uber, everything. Making money is easy. Managing your money gets a little bit tougher.
It's hard. It's like a whole different world.
And that's the second M. And so you have to go out there, find the programs, find mentors. And that's kind of what we put together in IX, mm-hmm. right? And we're going to continue, and we're going to start to make better programs within our community mm-hmm. for the managing side of the money. And then the third thing, and I think we've done pretty well at this, but we're not the best at it, is multiplying your money, mm-hmm. right? Because I think a lot of people, you start to make money, you start to realize, okay, I can manage it. I've learned a few, because it's just really a few small principles that you have to implement in your life to be able to manage your money correctly. You have to be disciplined, just like anything. Mm-hmm. And then multiplying the money, very few people can do that, right? And that's why there's people out there that are real estate moguls or tech moguls or anything like that, because they figured out a way, whatever that system was, to be able to go out there and leverage whatever they built, their businesses. Mm-hmm. I think Elon Musk is kind of like the best example of it. He's most well known is he built a company, partnered with PayPal, sold PayPal. He put, I probably mess up the numbers, but he put, $10 billion in Solar City. He put X amount into Tesla. He put X amount in SpaceX. And the next month he was broke again,
he was
right?
But
but now if you look at those, that was 10 years ago. Now, 10 years, 15 years later, he has, I don't know if it's right now the biggest market cap company in the world, richest person in the world. But because he laid that foundation 15 years ago, and he compounded it into another, he leveraged it into another. Now he's going and buying out all these assets all over the world, platforms. And so these 3 M's of money, if you can figure out what to do with your money, because anybody's going to be able to make money, but why are people so broke in today's society? Because they don't know how to manage and they don't know how to multiply. And that's what I want to teach people is it's just a few decisions, and it's a little bit of discipline making those decisions every single day, day after day with your money. And people just, it's boring. The problem is it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's boring, people don't like to do it. But what I always tell people from stage is like, how many of you guys have ever been afraid to open your app, your banking app, or back in the day, go check your ATM balance, right? I remember I'm like, I don't even want to look
I've been there.
Now,
because you knew there were fees that were just racking up.
Overdraft fees, withdrawal fees, and you're just like, my account got overdrafted, I'm negative $200. Yep. And then you have, the auto charges coming from your insurance, different things, and you're just like, how am I going to get to the next month? I can't even get to the next day because I don't have enough money. But let's talk a little bit. We were talking about a story last night, and in the current state of the economy here with inflation, we're talking about 401ks and traditional savings accounts and what's happening to the average American these days. Maybe share with us a little bit about some of those numbers and conversations that you've had with people.
The average American is getting wrecked right now. Their savings is getting wrecked, and it's at the hands of the banking system, the Federal Reserve. Think about this. We work hard and long hours to be able to try and save as much money as we can so that we'll get ahead a little bit. I'm going to say this, and I want you to hear me. You cannot outsave inflation and the devaluation of the dollar. You just can't do it. And
that's how they steal from you without you realizing
yes,
it.
And that's the thing that, they're out there. How are they wrecking your savings? Well, they're out there continually printing more and more and more money. I mean, they create money out of thin air. And if people truly understood how much of it is in circulation and has been put into circulation in such a short period of time, well, what does that do to your money sitting in the bank? Well, you may have $10,000 and you go put it in the bank. Well, last I checked, I'm paying $8 for a dozen eggs. Mm-hmm. And, there's, the cost of everything is up on the rise. And so your dollar doesn't go as far. And so that $10,000 is no longer worth $10,000.
Correct.
And so maybe it's worth $9 or maybe it's worth $8. So you have to think like the banks. People always say, well, how do I get ahead then? You do exactly what the banks do. You put your money in the banks. And what do they do with it? They take your money and go invest it. Mm-hmm. They're wrecking your dollars, but at the same time, they're taking your money and they're buying income-producing assets.
They're leveraging your money to go buy income-producing assets, whether that's in real estate or Forex or buying other mortgages and leveraging them and building portfolios and selling you a money market account that gives you 2% a year, 3% a year, 1%. And they're making...
Yeah, I mean, people you get excited about that 0.6% that you made in your savings this year.
Yeah.
So I look at that and I see what's going on. So the conversations that I'm having with a lot of people, I was talking with a lady this week. I asked her, I said, so she was asking me questions about our program. And I said, well, how are you happy with the results that you've had in your 401k? Again, questions. And she said, I haven't looked at it. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
She said, I'm afraid to look at it. And I said, well, do you think
that's a great strategy?
Yeah, which I get, right? I've had times I didn't want to go to the mailbox.
Yeah.
You don't want to know what's in there, the bills. But she says, I don't want to see how much that I've lost. And I says, well, how can you, do you think that that's a good plan? From a retirement plan, from a wealth creation plan, is that a good plan? She says, no, I know that it's not. I says, okay. And I said, so she eventually did look and she noticed how much money that she had lost. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you another question. Do you think that it would make sense? First of all, I said, how do you feel about the economy right now? She says, I'm really nervous about things. I'm seeing global recession and all of these comments. And I said, okay, so do you think that it could possibly get worse before it gets better? She says, I definitely think it's going to get worse. I said, okay, so you're not happy with the results that you're getting and you've lost money and you're telling me that it potentially could get worse. She says, yeah. And I said, do you think that it would make sense to take a small percentage of your 401k? Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20%. You have to make that decision. I'm not a financial advisor. And put it into something else that would hedge those losses that could potentially give you more stored value and more
Even cash flow.
Even cash flow, and with strong upside potential.
Yeah.
She says, yeah, I think that would make sense. Now, by the way, I could have spent the whole time telling her my opinion and selling her on trying to convince her of my opinion. But we arrived at a place where I said, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about what those numbers look like. And she ultimately ended up diversifying, came out of her stock market, and she now has nodes that are coming online today.
And I don't want to, I get excited because I know some of those numbers and what they've done.
I thought about saying it, but I couldn't.
In comparison to what they're doing in a traditional, it's, you know, a couple, could be 1x or 2x, but it's just better right now. But the reason it's better is because now you are in control. You are self-directing. And I think that's what people need to understand is what we are trying to do is empower people to be in charge of their financial future. We've gotten duped. That's the word I'll use, by the traditional system. They say, put your money in here and we're going to, essentially you're giving your money, somebody else is managing it and you don't know what's going on. You get quarterly statements. And before they used to be like, okay, I made a little bit, but now it's like, I lost. Next quarter, I lost. Next quarter, I lost. And it's like, when do you take control of your own financial future? And the problem is people are not educated financially and they don't read the right books, unfortunately. Why? Because it's not taught in school. It's not taught in college. The system is set up for us to go out, get into debt. They offer you a credit card at 18 years old and a high interest rate because you're brand new. Then you have to go and get auto insurance, which the rates for an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old driver, as you probably know, through the roof, right? And so it's not set up for a young adult to succeed. It's set up so you can get into debt, what I call modern day slavery. And then once you're in the chains of the financial system, it's hard to break out. It's hard to get out of there. But once you start getting the right and I think everything is based on education. It is. And it's been, for me and you, it's been a 15, 20-year realization of where we're at now. But what I want to do is I don't want it to take people 15 years to get to where I had to be. I want them to be able to get out in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, whatever path they're on. And the only way we do that is through community. It's through, you know, getting on our calls and teaching people, asking the right questions and giving them the basic tools, because it's not like it's not some secret. It's just the tool. And then you have to follow and discipline yourself. The biggest thing that changed my life in financial literacy is the principle of pay yourself first. And it is probably the hardest thing to do, but it is the most freeing thing to do. When you take, and I know in the industry we're in, our income can scale pretty quick, but let's just put the example for the average person, right? You take an average person that's maybe making $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, whatever their salary is. And you tell them now they have to take a percentage of that and put it into a account that they can no longer touch. 10%, let's say. And what I teach is you need to put 10% pay yourself and 10% for, I call it tithing, but it could be a charitable cause, because what that does is it sets your mind up for abundance instead of scarcity, right? You're now giving, but what you're giving, you're going to get back 100-fold. That's my belief system in finances. It's hard to believe that because you're like, I can't get by doing it on 100% of what I'm making. How am I going to get by on 90% or 80%? But what ends up happening is you start doing it. You don't know how you're going to do it. And you get uncomfortable. And when you get uncomfortable, you start growing and you start realizing, well, I can do it. Or you start looking for a side hustle. You start becoming a little bit more aware that you can make money online, whether it's with us in network marketing or other side hustles, things out there like Fiverr, DoorDash. You can do anything these days to make a couple extra $100 that you can put that into an account you're never going to touch. That's going to be your golden egg. And I started working on mine 3-4 years ago. And at the beginning, I was like, I am never going to get to where I need to be. And it's like, I $100, $500, but it starts to get to a point, and I took this from Grant Cardone, so I'll steal it. And it's no longer about saving money, because I think the saving mentality also kind of limits you. And I love this word, it's about stockpiling money and having those cash reserves. So when there is an opportunity to go out there and now get back into the real estate market because it's pulled back, or get into a traditional business, you now have the capital to go and make those decisions. where if you just kept living your life, you don't have those opportunities anymore. So you now have the opportunity to now compound, just like we were talking about with Elon. So, you know, I think the biggest thing for me is teaching people financial literacy. And I think that's the boring part of the business, because people like to look at multiplying their money immediately, but it's really about financial literacy, what we teach. And I think we have the best system to do that because we can directly connect to people and share these experiences with them.
You know, you talk about education, and it brought this thought to my mind. So my message for a while now has been developing IPAs, income producing asset, create passive income, take the income, develop another income producing asset. Eventually you have enough residual income that you're free, right? Like that's been a message that I've taught for a long time. When I came into IX Global, I was also coming into a realization of everything that was going on in the world as far as with the banking system and the Federal Reserve. And not just that, but also let's talk about the stock market for just a moment. You know, my whole life, you had the baby boomers, our parents' generation, that were contributing to the stock markets. Well, now they're pulling out, right? But our up and coming generation's buying Bitcoin. They're not buying. Chandler is not buying stocks. I'm not saying stocks are bad, and I'm not giving any advice. What I'm saying is that if you just look at the numbers, there's less and less money going into the stock market, more and more coming out. We all know that anytime that somebody is selling and there's more money that's coming out, it puts downward pressure. And so when you look at just the numbers, even in the last year, you could say, yeah, the economy's terrible and this or that, but the outlook, and I'm not saying that there's not a place for your 401k stocks, all those things. What I am saying is diversification makes sense. And so back to the education point for a moment, when I launched IX Global, I did something that I've never done before. And for those of you that are building the business, I want you to hear this because we've had bigger results with this launch than anything that we've had before. And we've had good success. I didn't launch with the traditional, I'm launching my MLM business, get your spot now, get your position, come in and work. That really wasn't my message. And you know this, what I taught was just education about here's what's going on in the world. And this is still what I do. This is what's going on in the world. Here are your options. We're providing different solutions. Here's what they are. It's not get rich quick, but it is get rich possible. But it's going to require discipline. It's going to require sacrifice. And so we started attracting all kinds of people, you know, maybe we call them customers, whatever you want to call them, members that weren't coming here for the opportunity. They were coming here because of the additional options we were providing. And then what was funny is so many of them, my buddy Jamie that lives here, he'll laugh if he ever watches this. He calls me and he says, look, I don't want anything to do with that ML. I don't want to build it at all. You know, I just want to buy some notes. I said, okay. Jamie calls me 4 days later. Hey, can you talk to my friends that, you know, they want to know a little bit more about what it is I'm doing? A couple days later. Hey, so I've got this guy. I'm like, and so my business actually exploded by not necessarily talking about, you know, or the traditional route of, you know, come in, get in now, get in, you know, all of that stuff. It was education. And so you need to educate yourself for your own personal financial situation, for wealth creation. This community is a great place to do that because there's so many brilliant minds in our community. But if you're building the business, you need to educate yourself so that you can start educating others.
For sure. And I think for me, that is what I want IX to be. I want it to be well-rounded in a sense to where we can have great people that want to come in and have a great business opportunity, because I think that's always, there's always going to be a need for that. We need customers that are just going to come in on a customer referral base and they're going to refer a couple more customers, and that's all it is. But they see the potential in the product. They see the potential in the community. They see the change that it could bring into their life if they made the correct decisions, whether it's correct for them or not, you know, and get involved. Now, where do you see, you know, we've had an opportunity, and let's talk a little bit about Xnode here for a second, right? We've had the opportunities, you and I, a few other people. We've traveled out to the middle of nowhere in the US, the middle of nowhere in West Africa. And we've kind of been looking, and I know you and I, we started doing our validation process with our partners on debt, you know, a while back, right? And we've kind of, me and you have been doing it basically at the same time. You asked me those great questions and I'm like, oh, well, let's go and let's ask that great. What I've learned to love about the partnership that we have with D.E.B.T is the more and more I get into it, the more and more I love about it. And in other businesses that I've been a part of or vendors that I've been partnered with is they sell you this big, you know, vision and painting the story on all these what ifs, and you get excited about it. And then you get down past the honeymoon phase and you start seeing all these red flags, right? And that's the way businesses work for me. I know you probably have those experiences as well. But let's talk about the validation the verification, the hard questions that we've asked D.E.B.T for our Xnode products as well. Because I think one of the biggest, hurdles that we have to overcome when we're offering this product is the validation, the verification, the tough questions that we've asked D.E.T and the D.E.T Council to provide for us.
Well, I think that what really separates us from everybody else is the fact that it's the underlying projects that are supporting these different tokens that we have. And I have a trust but verify that, philosophy. Correct. That has come from learning the hard way.
Yeah.
And
that, just so you know, that's pushed me to also do it, because for me, I'm a little bit like, I'm just trust, and I'll take you at your word because that's how I am. If I say something, I'm going to do it.
Right.
So I don't need to go verify or validate, but you're the ones that's pushed me to more have that philosophy. And I appreciate that, by the way.
Well, I'm still learning it. Yeah. I'm still learning it, but trust but verify. Sometimes you could argue that I'm an optimist to a fault. I just think everything's going to work out, and buy me a steak and I'll love you forever. You know what I mean? So, but I trust but verify. I think that especially in this space with what we're trying to do, if you look at the history of companies that are in the direct sales industry that have been involved with the digital currency space, it's not a great track record.
Yeah.
And so I'm up for the challenge. That's why I love being one of the pioneers that says, look, we're gonna do it right. We're gonna show you how it's done, and we are gonna set the standard. And it can be done, and it can be done ethically, and it can be done in integrity. And so I'm proud of being a part of that movement. But part of that is going out and going to Accra, Ghana, and getting up at 6 a.m. every day and flying to, who knows where, a city you've never heard of before, riding in a bus for 3 hours that somehow hits every pothole on the street that is possible for 3 hours.
And the AC's not working.
And the AC's not working. And then it gets stuck in the mud. And then you have to walk another mile to get to a gold concession so that you can show people that this does exist. And so what we try to do is we try to go out and provide as much validation as we can, and going to oil wells and providing that validation. And I have to tell you that the more and more that I spend time around individuals like Jason and Jake and Shad and Roy, they stretch my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember the first meetings I sat in with you and Jason, and I was like, I don't even know what half of this guy's saying, but I am feeling it.
Yeah.
Now I understand at least half of what he's saying. But, to truly understand and see the validation of what they've done here, it's really remarkable. And there's enough out there now that if you just start to kind of put the crumbs together, you come to the conclusion that this is real, that what these guys are doing is the first. They are the first in the world to tokenize commodities, to bring real world assets to the table. It's just like the dollar when it was backed by gold.
Yeah. And
then when it was removed from gold, it lost its value. And so we're really raising the bar in the entire digital currency space. And Joe, I always ask myself, 4% of the world today has a cryptocurrency wallet, and it's going to grow to 10% over the next few years. What's going to be the catalyst? And it's very easy. It's replacing hype with substance, replacing that speculation with tangibility. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And for me, it's always been, I'm that optimist as well, because I'm like, this is a product that my people need. This is something that the people need. But there's always that, well, is it true that all these assets are there, that all these mines are there, that all these royalties are there? You know what I mean? It's always been that. But the way I look at it is, if we can validate that, which I feel we have, and we will continue to do more and more due diligence as there's more and more projects and more partnerships that are announced. But I just feel really good about the partnership because they've done everything that they said they've done, and they're doing some amazing things. Now, with that being said, I feel the world needs that product. What is going to be that catalyst? And in the digital space, in the digital currency space, The big thing out there is, the last few years is Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And the biggest questions that I would get asked is, well, what backs Bitcoin and what backs Ethereum? Nothing. It's pure speculations. How much money is flowing into the market, and how much are somebody willing to pay for that token or for that coin, right? And so what is going to be that catalyst is I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are so forward thinking. This is just my opinion, that they're so forward thinking that the average person cannot get involved in the digital currency space and understand what a smart contract is and understand Web3 and how to link accounts and how to safeguard their tokens and their coins and enable 2FAs. The average person cannot do that without somebody helping them. Now, what I love about the debt projects is it's pulling it back a little bit to reality, as I like to say. I always call it a bridge project, where they're taking something complex like, digital currency space or blockchain, and they're pulling it back a little bit to reality, and they're creating a bridge from where the people are right now to make it as simple. And even as simple as we're trying to make it, it's still confusing to a lot of people, right? But imagine going so far forward into Web3 and connecting account. It's very, very complicated at that point, right? You talk about like decentralized exchanges, pancake, people would not know how to do it. So I feel what we're putting together with our partnerships and our products is something that is going to allow people to take that step forward into the innovation of blockchain technologies and get involved in something that can have an impact in the world, in people's world around the world, in Ghana, in the US, whether in Nebraska or Texas and Nevada, wherever these projects are getting set up around the world. And what I love about it is we will just continue to grow and grow the ecosystem. And it's going to be able, and people ask me the question all the time, and I want you to hit on this a little. Do you have enough bandwidth? Do you guys have enough licenses to sell us? Are you guys going to be able, and I'm like, I kind of laugh at it, right? Because I'm like, if you just really knew kind of like the reality, this project is something that can be, multi-billions, if not, maybe more. I don't want to, put too much out there, but it's something that is a huge project. And so people are like, oh, because they think MLM is like this big industry. The largest company in our industry that's over 60 years old is only $8 billion in revenues. And so that's a tiny little company compared to these tech companies out there that are doing hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of funny when you start to look at it. I was in a call yesterday with Jason. I was like, he was saying some stuff that I was just like, it was blowing my mind even more, right? But for me, it's like, okay, what do you feel the potential of the ecosystem is? That's the question I want to ask you. What do you feel the potential of the debt ecosystem and our Xnode product is?
We are disruptors. We are pioneers. It's the pioneers they write about in the history books, right? And so the sky is the limit. I mean, the digital currency space is not going away. We know that it's going to continue to grow and evolve. And I believe that in my lifetime, there will be a time where you and I may not even interact with fiat currency anymore. It's happening in a lot of places already. And so people are going to have to learn. You're either going to have to learn it now or learn it later. If you learn it later, you miss out on a tremendous opportunity. And so for us, I believe the sky is the limit. I mean, I think that I never would have imagined that when you and I sat down in June of last year, that
7 months ago,
that, I know that you put this big goal out of $500 million this year. And in my mind, I'm actually thinking that we'll hit $1 billion this year. And that I would have never imagined that 6 months ago. Some people might be like, oh, fast cash, fast crash, that's hype, but it's not, there's not hype. We're not selling
when
hype.
There's something real behind it.
Correct. And we're not promising riches. In fact, some people come in and they're like, how come the coin's down? And I'm like, well, it's been 3-4 months and we're in a down market and tokenomics haven't kicked in yet, but let me educate you a little bit on how this ecosystem truly works.
They have a misconception of it because there's been a lot of other things out there that may be similar, but it's not. This is something completely different once you get involved in it and you start deep diving into how it works.
I still get calls every day. Hey man, what's going on with the token values? What's going on, or what's happening today, or this or that? And here's what I want people to understand: this. When Bitcoin's at 69,000, there's no shortage of people that are running to buy it. When Bitcoin's at 16,000, everybody's afraid to buy it because
Yeah.
everybody's talking about that the sky is falling and the sky is falling. The decisions that you make in a down market and the coins that you accumulate in a down market have the potential to build you true wealth over the next few years.
Legacy wealth.
Yes.
And
legacy wealth.
and I want to go back to that because we talked legacy wealth. Now we're talking about 3, 5, 6 generations of wealth. And I think that's where people kind of get that. We're not building something now for today. Yes, there's cash flow and everything that we can make out of, selling tokens and, all these different things. But what I'm really looking for is how can I, at this point, accumulate as much as I can. So in 3 years and 5 years, I have now legacy wealth. And I think that's the misconception people have with our ecosystem as well.
There's price and there's value, and they're not always the same. In fact, they very rarely are. Price is here. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at 3,000, 24,000 right now. Is that the value of Bitcoin?
No.
Some would argue that it's half a million,
Yeah.
or even higher.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been realized yet. So you might buy Bitcoin, today, and it could be at 16 3 months from now again, or 18 or 19
You
or
still
20.
have one Bitcoin.
You still have one Bitcoin.
Yep.
And people don't seem to understand. And you and I were talking about this. If you don't sell, then that's not your price.
Yeah.
I reject that price,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
reject, even at, I bought Bitcoin at 16, and if it was sitting at 24, it's not worth 24.
Yeah.
I reject that price.
Yeah.
Therefore, it doesn't matter because until Bitcoin hits 100K,
Yep.
which is maybe that in my mind said, okay, well, I would take profit
At that point.
yeah, then it's worth 100K to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sell it until then.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about Nat G. And I know I won't throw numbers out there, but we were talking about you and I have a number that's what it's worth.
Yeah.
It's just the price is here today, and it takes time. But in the meantime, I'm not going to focus on the price. I'm going to focus on the accumulation, because once I have all of these and it does hit that number,
it's a good day.
it's a good day.
It's a wonderful day.
And
Yeah.
so you just have to understand that you have to exercise patience is a verb in this sense. You have to be patient, and you have to understand that in especially in a down market, it is, people call me and they're like, man, it's been like 30 days or 60 days. And, I don't have an ROI. I'm like, number one, we don't talk about ROIs. We don't guarantee ROIs. But number two, and it's been like 60 days, bro. Like this is not your get rich quick deal.
Yeah.
This is building a foundation. And you talked about it earlier. It's boring doing that. And sometimes you just have to set it and forget it and walk away from it and just let it accumulate.
Well, and the problem is people are just focused on their app all the time. Refresh.
3 times a day.
What you need to do, like like you just said, I bought Bitcoin at a price. I'm down on some of my Bitcoin. I'm up on some of my Bitcoin. But the value I see it is 200,000 and 500,000 per coin. And those are my targets in my head. And if I will never sell that Bitcoin until it gets to that price. And then I have certain goals from taking that profit that I'm going to go and buy myself hard assets. I'm going to go and do certain things that I want to achieve for my legacy, right? For my family and for my retirement.
That ranch.
Right? So, that's my goal. But that's the only way that I see it getting there. And it's patience. It's waiting out the market. It's weeding out the people that don't believe in the ecosystem. And the ecosystem needs those sellers. We need those sellers. And I think that's what people don't understand is every time somebody's selling, they're burning token. Every time they're transferring token, whatever it may be, they're burning token, restricting supply. And I know, Travis, we're coming up a little bit over our time here, but what I do want to, have people realize is, what we're setting out to do, like you said, it's never been done before in the correct way, I believe. And I do feel like we're setting that standard for the digital space, for the digital currency space. We have the right partners. We have the right leadership, even from myself down. I don't, I'm not trying to say I'm the best owner out there, but I have the best intentions out there. And I think that's what a lot of people that in projects that have come before us in, previous years, they didn't have those intentions. It was a get rich type of thing for them, a rug pull, if you will. And for me, it's not that at all. For me, it's creating legacy wealth. And the only way we're going to create legacy wealth is if we keep this ecosystem going in perpetuity, right? That's why we have perpetual licenses. We want people to understand that what we're putting together with the commodities and the resources and the royalties, it can go on for decades, if not more, right?
Well, this is a great time to announce the legacy token that'll become. No, no, that's exactly what it's about. It's all about legacy, and we know that about you, Joe. That's one of the things I love and appreciate about you is that you genuinely are one of the most selfless people that I know. you are the epitome of, what a CEO should strive to be like in this industry. And I'm grateful for that. And, you told me the 3 things you would do well.
Yeah.
You've done all the things that you said you would do, just the same way that the guys on the debt side have as well. And I just still
and everything else we struggle with, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but it's funny because I have to remind myself on the days where I'm having one of those days, where it's just like being overwhelmed.
You have bad days?
I have bad days, and people are calling me and they're frustrated about this or that, and it can get overwhelming. And sometimes you're like, it's like Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram and Telegram, and I, it's like trying to keep up,
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself that first of all, entrepreneurship is hard.
Yeah.
But so is being broke. So is working for somebody that you don't like. So is dealing with politics at the office. I mean, you pick your hard. We choose our hard. And in business and in entrepreneurship, you are rewarded based on the ability to be able to solve problems and overcome challenges. And I had somebody recently who is a leader, and he called me and he said, I'm going to take a step back. Too many challenges right now for me. I just can't deal with the amount of calls that are coming in, and I just can't. I don't know how you deal with it. And I said, okay, and I can respect that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's at. But for me, I recognize that the guys, imagine we're all going into a jungle and there's no path at all. And we are required to go and clear that path. And it's, they're going to come across all these scary things, tigers and snakes and bugs, and it's going to be a lot of work. And then, that's the first stage of any successful launch of a company. And then you get to that clearing where there's a little bit of a dirt path. You can go a little bit faster, but now there's some potholes in the road. And then eventually you get to the point where you're at a super highway.
Yep.
Well, the people that are coming in on the super highway are never going to be as successful as the people that are here. And so I respect that that's where his mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you something. I'm going to reach my goal of 7 figures a month in IX Global by being right there in the middle of those
Correct.
trenches
Yeah.
and providing those real world
And that
solutions.
goes back to what we were talking about, the process of emergence, right? The butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you will never be that butterfly if you don't have to go through those struggles. And that's one of the things that I love, and I hate to say this, and so if you're hearing this outside, is like I sometimes make my leaders, or let my leaders struggle a little bit, because then I get to see that's where the true loyalty comes in as well.
It's true.
Who's there in the tough times is going to be there in the good times. And the people that are come in the good times that aren't there in the tough times, those aren't the people I want in my inner circle. Going back to that, right?
Yeah,
and those are the people that I don't want to be in my. And I'm not saying I don't want them to be successful. I do, but they're not going to be in my inner circle and probably in my legacy creation path. So, Travis, with that, I do thank you so much for being on this with us. It was great to be able to. I know we could probably talk for a couple more hours here, so maybe we'll come on. We'll do another one in a couple months or something like that. But thank you for being on with us. There's a lot of great content out there, guys. If you are not yet, you're taking a look at IX Global or what we're doing with Xnode, make sure you get all the details. Travis, you're a great resource for that. Reach out to Travis. Any of the team members out there, they'll be able to help you get involved in Xnode and help you set up your products and help set you on that pathway to legacy leadership. So
thank you. Appreciate being here. Thank you so much.